Jazakumullah alf khair for having me. A slight pushback on the introduction. Allah says in Surah Fatir, "Man kana yuridu al-izzata falillah al-izzatu jami'a." Those who seek glory, let them know all glory belongs to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. What you've resonated with are not my words, you've resonated with what Gaza has inspired in you. And it's Gaza and Palestine that has this ability to elevate everybody who stands with Gaza and with Palestine. And Palestine has the ability to humiliate everybody who stands against Palestine, even in the middle of a presidential debate between two of probably the worst candidates I've ever seen. I should stress before I start, I did promise to behave. There is a joke amongst my friends. They say that when Sami speaks as if he will never be invited ever again to speak in front of somebody. You know, you talk about cancel culture. Sami speaks as if he's going to be cancelled eventually. So the views expressed are my own. They don't reflect those of any organization associated with this. They didn't ask me what I was going to say. They provided some recommendations of what to say, and parts of what I say are open rebellion, but it's my fault, it's not theirs. The views expressed are those of Sami, the son of Muhammad al-Hashim al-Hamdi, and no one else's. It's made absolutely clear. Brace yourselves. Sometimes when you do this often, you wonder how can you say the same message that has been said for the last 8-9 months in a way that can still evoke that sense and desire for action. Because the reality is that although I definitely celebrate TikTok, bring this up, yeah? Yeah, okay. Although I celebrate TikTok, may Allah protect, preserve and elevate TikTok, say Ameen. I don't know why you're laughing, I'm being serious. There was somebody in Philadelphia, in the Masjid Philadelphia, when I said it, I'm mid-speech, and he's sitting like, you know, just behind me here with his back against the wall, and he interrupts mid-speech and goes, "We're making dua for TikTok in the masjid." I told him, "Habibi, what's wrong with that? TikTok changed the whole American public opinion." He said, "It's fitna." I told him, "Shh." He said, "Don't shush me." I told him, "No, shush, I'm saving you." "What do you mean you're saving me?" "Akhi, don't tell people openly TikTok is fitna." He said, "Why?" "Because then you're telling people that you taught your algorithm to show you fitna. The algorithm only shows you what you ask it to show you. The algorithm only shows you what you've searched. My algorithm, Habibi, doesn't show me the fitna. It shows me Zinedine Zidane and clips of him when he was playing, phenomenal player. It shows me Ronaldinho flip-flap. It shows me that West African brother, I don't know if you've seen him. He does jogging every morning, but he records himself while he's jogging. He goes, 'Yo bro, don't forget that Allah is always with you. فَإِنَّ مَعَ الْعُسْرِ يُسْرًا.'" You say, "إِنَّ مَعَ الْعُسْرِ يُسْرًا." Repost. My TikTok shows me the chiropractor. Got a neck problem? I'm a chiro. And then you put your headphones in, you increase the volume just to hear that. It's so satisfying. And it shows me some parody account. So TikTok, may Allah protect and preserve it. One of the downfalls of TikTok is the limited attention span and the desire for new content. Sami, we've heard what you said. We memorized the jokes, we memorized the lines. You made Biden buckle, you made Blinken buckle. We've memorized all of it. You need new content if you want to remain relevant. How I wish genocide would change its content. How I wish the content coming out of Gaza would change before I'm the one asked to change the content. How I wish that the blowing up of the heads of Palestinians would change. Because it's constant for 8 months. How I wish it would change. Some of what you hear today you will have heard before. I don't really care. I think that it's always best to start with the current political situation as it stands. And once again, the views expressed by the speaker are the speaker's own. They don't reflect those anybody associated with this organization. Basically, the views solely of Sami ibn Muhammad al-Hashmi al-Hamdi. As it stands, Israel is losing. Israel is losing for a number of reasons. And I haven't come here, I saw somebody on social media, they said, Sami Hamdi, the motivational speaker, is coming. I said, A'udhu billah, I'm a motivational speaker? I'm a risk consultant and a geopolitical risk analyst. I will give you the analysis as I would give it to a paying client. Israel is losing for a number of reasons. The first is that there is no tangible victory that has been secured in Gaza, despite the demolition and annihilation that has taken place. Israel has not been able to annex Gaza, nor has it been able to ethnically cleanse it, nor does it have a plan for what to do with Gaza. And in the process, it's lost a lot of international support. And now Israelis are on the streets demanding Netanyahu's government fall, not because they're against genocide. Don't get it twisted. The Israelis are not protesting against genocide. They're protesting against the price required for genocide. Because although Palestinians are ready to pay a price of 100,000 Palestinians because it's their land, the Israelis are not willing to pay price for land that does not belong to them. Netanyahu, when he entered into Gaza, it's important to remember, he was not expecting a war in Gaza. Remember the week before October 7. The week before October 7. Netanyahu stood in the United Nations and held up a map and he said, this is the vision for a peaceful Middle East. What was missing from this map? Palestine. He erased it completely. In the same week, a certain leader of a Muslim country that has a couple of holy sites here and there gave an interview to Fox News and said, we are getting closer and closer every single day to normalization with the Israelis, and we are willing to normalize in exchange for, no, not Palestinian state, in exchange for a pathway to a Palestinian state. We are ready to give full normalization to the Israelis in exchange for negotiations over a Palestinian state. In that same week, there is a country that was the center of an empire that was mentioned in the previous talk. It had a lot of sultans. Netanyahu shook hands with the leader of this country, who said to Netanyahu, please don't build an economic corridor that goes from India, UAE, Saudi, Jordan, Israel, Europe. Build your economic corridor through Turkey, Israel. I said the name. Build an economic corridor through Turkey, Israel, and go into Europe. Yeah, Netanyahu, I'm going to shake your hand for the first time since 2003. And please help me out in the White House as well, because I've got issues over there. The Israeli ambassador to the United Nations, and you can, by the way, all of this is in Sahih non-Muslim. You can find it very easily. This one is in the chapter, you can find it. I know some people cringe with it, but technically in Arabic, all I said was authentic non-Muslim events. That's what I mean. Because sometimes I feel, Sheikh, you were talking earlier about the idea of knowing Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala and drawing on the seerah. But we learn seerah like a dajjal. Seerah only applies spiritually. It never applies publicly. Sahih Bukhari and Muslim, if I use it, it will only enter half of the brain, the dajjal, that part. So I have to use Sahih non-Muslim to address the inferiority complex that doesn't allow Muslims generally to associate seerah with the activism of today that we see. Allahumma, I am innocent of this ideology, but this is in the spirit of da'wah. وَجَادِلْهُمْ بِالَّتِي هِيَ أَحْسَنُ. Debate with them with that which is best. I know it applies to Ahl al-Kitab. I'm not making takfir here. I'm saying in the spirit of using the best arguments possible to evoke the reaction that I want in order to get you, to encourage you to keep moving for Gaza. A lot of holes I'm trying to avoid here. You can find this in the book of search engines, chapter of Google. The Israeli ambassador to the United Nations gave an interview to Can Television, which is one of the main Israeli channels. Can Television asks him, all of these Muslim leaders who are shaking your hands and promising normalization, what's the guarantee that the Israeli government will agree to normalization with these Muslim leaders? And he said, quote, it's the chain of narration is sahih. He said that when the Israeli government realizes that normalization with a land that has two holy sites means, quote, the complete Arab abandonment of the Palestinians, the Israeli government will sign on any normalization agreement with the Muslim leaders. Netanyahu, when he went back to Tel Aviv, he moved troops from the border with Gaza and he moved them to the West Bank. Who can guess why? He was getting ready to invade the West Bank because he believed that if he invades the West Bank, there won't be any backlash from Muslim leaders. There will only be fatwa about pacts that Rasulullah ﷺ made with the Jews in Medina and these others, as was the khutbah in Makkah al-Mukarramah the week after UAE normalized. The khutbah was, Ya ibadallah, why are you making a big fuss? The Prophet himself ﷺ made deals with Yahud. Again, Sami says it, inferiority complex, mutawattir. Ayatollah Google has the evidence, you can find it there if you want to do more research. The reason why I say this is Netanyahu was not expecting October 7th. So when October 7th happened, he was taken by surprise. But why was he taken by surprise? Because he built his image as the guarantor of security for Israel. So Ehud Olmert, who was a former prime minister, I'm going to use him because if I say it, you might not believe me. Ehud Olmert says that Netanyahu was taken by such surprise that he lashed out in Gaza. Because he was worried that what October 7th did was it exposed that he's not Mr. Security, and therefore he was desperate to restore the image of Mr. Security. When he went into Gaza and started bombing it, the usual trick is annexation of territory. What's the one thing Israelis will always forgive their prime minister if he gives it to them? Annexation. You give me more land and more settlements, I let you win the election. You kill more Palestinians, I put you back in the Knesset as the prime minister. It's the golden rule in Israeli politics, whether it's left wing or right wing. Don't let them lure you into a narrative that this is a right wing phenomenon. Israel has been annexing land on the left and on the right. The issue, however, is Netanyahu has a problem. Before he can annex Gaza, he has to address the problem that made Ariel Sharon withdraw from Gaza in 2005. Now, Ariel Sharon, you will all know, Ariel Sharon was a butcher, demolished Beirut. So Ariel Sharon, when he withdrew from Gaza, he wasn't given sadaqah. What Ariel Sharon was doing, he left Gaza not because he wanted to, he left Gaza because he had to. Because ethnic cleansing is a science. Now, I'm no expert, I should clarify that in the beginning. But ethnic cleansing is a very expensive and difficult process. When you kick out 700,000 Palestinians in the Nakba in 1948, those 700,000, they don't go to one place, they scatter. 1,000 here, 2,000 here, 1,000 here. When you go to the next village, the increase in population is not 700,000, it's only 1, 2, 3,000. That's manageable. You can impose apartheid on a village like that. The problem is, however, if over 70 years you keep taking land, there's no longer any land left for Palestinians to run to. What you end up with is a situation of a tiny piece of land with a high concentration of Palestinians, this land being called Gaza with 2 million Palestinians. Now you're used to apartheid, but when you impose apartheid, there's something very problematic. When you have 2 million in such a tight area, when you put settlers in those areas, what do you think those Palestinian homeowners do? They attack the settlers who stole their homes and occupy their homes. When they attack the settlers are confused. Hang on a second, am I being made to pay a price for stealing this land? Tel Aviv, I need you to send the army. When the army goes in, you go and you kill Palestinians, but your nation is reliant on foreign support. You need a colonizer, either the British or the Americans, to support you. But what happens when Ronald Reagan in 1982 realizes that the picture of the slaughtered babies in Beirut has caused such a shift in American public opinion? Reagan is worried about the elections. He tells Sharon, you must withdraw immediately or we're going to cut aid. Ariel Sharon withdraws from Beirut. When Netanyahu goes into Gaza, he realizes that Biden is flaky and the Americans are flaky. Because the more he kills in Gaza, the more angry Americans get. The more angry Americans get, the more they're likely to punish in elections. The more likely they're ready to punish in elections, the more likely the Americans are unwilling to support you. So Netanyahu says, before genocide, let me consider ethnic cleansing. The problem with ethnic cleansing is, if apartheid is too expensive because there's too many Palestinians, let me see if I can kick the Palestinians to another land. What's the closest land he can kick the Palestinians to? Egypt. Now Egypt's General Sisi has a problem. In 2015, the Wall Street Journal reported that Israelis came to Washington to beg the president to convince the Egyptians to stop being so eager to blockade the Palestinians, to stop destroying the tunnels with such efficiency, because the Israelis said, if we squeeze them from that side, we need to let them breathe from the other side. Otherwise, they will explode, there'll be war, and we don't know what to do with Gaza. We don't want a war with Gaza. We just want to mow the lawn every now and then. This time, Blinken, you know they talk about climate change policies, but climate change is not as important as genocide. So they're happy to fly back and forth, 15 hours, 15 hours, 15 hours, 15 hours, 15 hours, 15 hours. Genocide is worth it. Blinken goes to Sisi and says, I need you to open the border to let the Palestinians in. But Sisi, for all of his flaws, and he has many, the views expressed are the speaker's own, they don't reflect those of the organization or anybody associated. If you want to go for a holiday in Cairo, go. I would recommend Bosnia, but it's up to you guys. When my wife first came to me, she said to me, Sami, let's do a travel company. You say reconnect memories of the Ummah. I actually said to her, I don't think this idea will work. She said, why? I told her, I love my Ummah, but I'm not blind that they're humiliated for a reason. They read about Sahaba going to new lands, but they only holiday in 4 areas. In Turkey, Morocco, Malaysia, and Dubai. The Ummah doesn't explore, it doesn't want to go to new places. So Sumaya, of course she proved me wrong later. All it required was a bit of marketing for these new destinations. People go. In any case, Sisi has an issue. First of all, he doesn't want to open that border unless you've got $10,000, then you can cross the border. But if you don't have filus, then like the guy, man, Allahumma filus. Gulu ameen ala kulli hal. Sisi's issue is not about the Palestinian welfare. Sisi's issue is, and I want you to think as political analysts, if Palestinians cross the border into Sinai, now, are there any Palestinians here? Oh, I can't make the joke. You guys know what Palestinians are like, right? Like you know them, Palestinian, whoever's dealt with a Palestinian knows, they are stubborn, subhanallah. Palestinians don't give up. They don't give up on justice, they don't give up on their land, they don't give up on their rights, they don't give up on their state, they don't give up on Allah, they don't give up on Rasul sallallahu alaihi wasallam, we all know the Palestinians. So when they cross over the border and they're in those tents that your taxpayer money will fund, because homelessness in LA is not a priority. Healthcare for you, free healthcare is not a priority. I remember I was in North Carolina attending a wedding. The brother of the bride, he vomited in the car. So we had doctors with us. So in the UK, I know this won't be, you won't believe it when I tell you, but in the UK, if I wake up one morning, Sheikh Abdurrahman, and I go, I can say to my wife, Sumaya, that felt funky. I'm gonna go and see the doctor just to make sure that I'm okay. And then I'll see the doctor maybe in a week, 2 weeks or the like, and I'll see the doctor. He says, Sami, what's wrong? I tell him I coughed and it felt bad. He says, come off it. You took 1 hour of my time to talk to him about a cough. I tell him, Sheikh, I asked Ayatollah Google, I might have cancer. I needed to check. And he'll say, there's nothing wrong with you. Check, doctor. And he does that thing, you know, and he goes, cough, and you try to recreate it. He says, there's nothing wrong with you, go home. Are you sure? Are you sure? Alhamdulillah. When we told this brother in North Carolina, go see a doctor, just to make sure, he said, no. He vomited again. I told him, call an ambulance then. This looks serious. The doctors were like, it might be meningitis. He said, don't call the ambulance. I told him, why are you so stingy for 400? He goes, do you know how much it costs for an ambulance to bring it to come and see me over vomiting? Biden couldn't find money to address this, but he found 8 billion for genocide. Sisi believes that in those tents that your taxpayer money will fund, because that's a priority. Genocide and ethnic cleansing is a priority. What do you think those hard-headed Palestinians are going to do? Do you think they're going to say, Yalla, let's all get Egyptian citizenship? No. What's going to come out of those tents? Because I don't know if it's recorded. I don't know for algorithm purposes. We have to be... Out of those tents will come... Now when those... No, but hang on a second. For those of you cringing, under international law, Palestinians have the right to resist. Under international law, Israel is an occupying power with no right to self-defense. Palestinians are an occupied people entitled to resistance. I'm not saying anything illegal. So when comes out of those camps, what do you think the Zionists are going to do? They're going to invade. When Sisi goes to America and says that this isn't Palestine, he's invading Egypt, do you think Biden will say international law has to be upheld, you have to leave Egypt? No. He's going to say Sinai should be put under a peacekeeping force, under a United Nations force. It should be a demilitarized zone, and it should be under administration of an international power, hint, hint, White House. So Sisi says, I'm not opening that border. So Netanyahu has a problem in Gaza. Remember what I started with, Israel is losing. Netanyahu has a problem in that these Palestinians are not going anywhere. And not only are they not going anywhere, they're popping up in places where they've already been ethnically cleansed. Netanyahu enters northern Gaza, drives out the Palestinians in those humanitarian corridors. Enters Gaza city, drives the Palestinians out. Then when he gets to Khan Yunis, Hamas pop up in northern Gaza. They pop up in Gaza city. They go back to Gaza city, they cleanse it again. Then Hamas pops up in Khan Yunis. It's like whack-a-mole. And the Israeli domestically in Tel Aviv is saying, hang on a second, you told us we're the chosen people. You told us we were the superior ones. You told us these were insect, barbaric animals, uncivilized. How is it that 8 months and we're still unable to annex Gaza, take Gaza, kick out the Palestinians? Netanyahu, you failed miserably. We're taken to the streets demanding that you resign. Netanyahu, how dare you after all this time? You can't even bring back the hostages. 5,000 Palestinian hostages in Israel, we don't care. But 5 Israeli hostages or 200 Israeli hostages, you can't bring them back. That's a high price to pay for land that does not belong to us. You are not fit to be prime minister because you couldn't steal land in a way where that means we don't have to pay a price. So Netanyahu cannot impose apartheid. He's unable to do so. He can't commit ethnic cleansing. They're not willing to do so. So Netanyahu says, okay, I'm going to give up on Gaza. He said 2-3 days ago, we're going to wind down the operations and I'll go after Lebanon in the north. If I go after Lebanon in the north and I hit Hezbollah and I get criticized heavily for my views on the Iranian project in the region. For those of you Syrians here, I recognize what the Iranian militias did in Syria. I recognize they did what Israel did to Palestinians. I recognize that they kicked you out of your homes in the name of Al-Hussein Ali ibn Abi Talib. I recognize that they turfed you and kicked you off to the north. I recognize that they saw Bashar al-Assad dearer to them than a population that wanted freedom. I know what Iran has done in Syria. I know what it's done in Iraq when it kicked out large swathes of Sunni populations in Diyala under the pretext of fighting ISIS. I know what Iran has done. In what I'm saying, I am not praising Hezbollah nor the Iranians. I am analyzing politics. So please, I am not like the other members of the Ummah who ignored you for 10 years and then saw a few missiles and said, God bless what these people are doing. I know what they did to you, and I know what the real project is like. I'm analyzing politically. Please don't hold it against me. Israel believes if it hits Hezbollah, which drove out Israeli families from lands that they stole, if those families can go back after hitting Hezbollah, then this is a prize that he can give to the Israelis to say, look how I demolished Lebanon, here's the victory, now vote for me. The problem, however, is in the absence of ethnic cleansing or apartheid, successful ethnic cleansing or apartheid, as long as the genocide continues, Netanyahu has a new problem. The longer the genocide continues, there is a wonderful da'i called TikTok. This da'i elevated the voice of the Palestinians, and its algorithm put Palestine as the #1 most shared content. And this da'i put the Palestinian content onto the phones of ordinary Americans who cannot even point to Israel on a map. When Samantha, Barbara, Stephen, Jeffrey, Joseph, Michael, Bob, when they open their phones the next day to see what happened between Kanye West and his marital affairs, instead, they saw the picture of Sidra with her legs blown off. Instead, they saw the families being driven from their homes. Instead, they saw the video of the girl, her leg is being amputated without anesthesia, 9 years old. She's begging them to leave her leg on. The reaction of the Americans to this da'wah, which was delivered because the Ummah spoke, was not TikTok fixed my algorithm, I don't want to see this. It was, hang on a second, I want to read about this. And the Zionists said, no, please don't read. When you read the Surah Iqra, if you read it like a Dajjal, you just think, just read. Here's what read means. They saw the haqq and they started reading. They opened the books. There was a very good TikTok video by an African American. She does a sketch of a conversation between her and a Zionist. I will act it out. Zionist. No, just acting Zionist. A'udhu billah. Oh my God, did you see what happened on October 7th? What happened? What happened on October 7th? They killed, slaughtered, raped, beheaded babies. Oh my God, that's so, why? I don't know, they're just barbaric animals. It's just what they do. Oh my God, are you telling me that people just got up suddenly and went and suddenly slaughtered? Yeah, it's scary what this world is like. Oh my God, that's so scary. I gotta read about this. No, don't read about it. No, I gotta read about it. No, don't read about it. No, I gotta read about it. And she does this. The one who's reading now goes, looks at the Zionist and goes. People started reading. And when they started reading, they started learning. And when they started learning, they started understanding. And when they started understanding, John Hudson, the chief White House correspondent for the Washington Post, tweeted last week that quote, I showed it to some of the brothers here, they can testify because I'm mutawattir and we need Sahih non-Muslim to reinforce these things for you to believe it. John Hudson says new analysis captures the difference between the Zionist donors who are giving him millions in exchange for him supporting Netanyahu and 13% of American Biden voters who are swearing to punish him in November because of the condition the Zionists are making. The tafsir of this hadith is, or the sharh, is that Biden is getting millions from Zionists, but the condition they are giving him the money, or the condition they are demanding, is what might lose him the election in November. Because there is a power greater than that which money can buy, and it's the power of the da'wah of Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam that captures the hearts in such a way that no money can buy them, and that's why American public opinion has shifted. God bless TikTok. Netanyahu is shocked because as a result of the ummah raising its voice on TikTok, Instagram, yes, even Instagram, because they couldn't shadow ban everyone. I went because, you know, فَاسْأَلُوا أَهْلَ الذِّكْرِ إِن كُنْتُمْ لَا تَعْلَمُونَ. Ask the people of knowledge if you don't know. If you read the ayah like a Dajjal, you think Ahl al-Dhikr are only imams. But if you open the other ayah, you realize those Muslims working in Silicon Valley, they are Ahl al-Dhikr in technology. So I went to see them. I said to them, guys, explain to me how Palestine is still number one, even though Meta is shadow banning. They said, Sami, I don't think you understand how this tech stuff works. You can limit and shadow ban 1,000 accounts, 10,000, maybe even 1 million. Sami, there's more than 2 billion people around the world literally retweeting and spreading the same message and hashtag. No system in the world is able to crush that. And that's why Meta, which was asked by the Zionists, it couldn't do it because of the sheer power of the ummah that decided to stand up and speak, that decided to get rid of the weak mentality, that decided to do something. When it did something, it shifted global public opinion. Netanyahu's problem is that as a result of the shift in public opinion, Biden is now imposing conditions, humanitarian corridors. Biden is not against genocide. Biden is against paying a price electorally for a genocide for a land that does not belong to the Israelis. Why should I pay a price for your land? Either do it in a way that protects me, or I'm not going to help you with it at all. But there's something even worse. As a result of TikTok, hafadahullah wa ra'ah, the public opinion in France shifted so much. Macron called for a ceasefire when Biden begged him not to. Belgium called for sanctions on Israel when Biden begged them not to. The EU's Joseph Borrell said we need a ceasefire when Biden begged them not to. Biden cut funding for UNRWA and criminalized it in Congress. Canada broke ranks with America, restored funding for UNRWA. Australia restored funding for UNRWA. EU restored funding for UNRWA because they felt there's a power more scary than Israel and Biden, which means they are willing to defy Biden and Israel in order not to upset this new power that is manifesting. And that new power was what? It was you. That new power was you. Shift in public opinion is resulting in the ICJ, the ICC. Germany, which broke up Palestinian protests. Biden said, I will sanction the ICC. Germany said, if Netanyahu comes to Germany and the ICC has an arrest warrant, we will arrest Netanyahu. All of America's allies wrote, Biden, you need to ittaqillah. They didn't say in that way, but the meaning was, you need to fear Allah. Not fear Allah, but you need to fear their equivalent. Astaghfirullah. Or what they deem to be an equivalent. You need to fix yourself because international institutions matter. But the point that I want to hit home on is two, because I'm aware of the time and I promise I'll behave. Netanyahu now faces being kicked out of power because his war cabinet has broken apart. Benny Gantz has resigned. Israelis are protesting. Palestinians still exist. Because Henry Kissinger had a maxim. Henry Kissinger said what we didn't understand in Vietnam was a conventional army loses if it doesn't win, but a guerrilla force wins as long as it doesn't lose. Palestinians win so long as they exist. Israel loses so long as the Palestinians exist. But the final point of Netanyahu's consideration why Israel is losing is because there is something that is so catastrophic that might happen in November that Israel will never be able to win back. And I want you to follow me on this. Some Muslims, they say to me, Sami, in November, it doesn't make a difference Because both Biden and Trump are pro-Israel. They're both pro-Zionists, and therefore we need to look out for our own interests, because people of Palestine are in Jannah anyway. So if we forgive a bit of genocide here and there, it's, we just say it wasn't within our power. But I want you all to imagine yourselves as political analysts and go with me on this one. I'll go slowly, I promise. Do we agree, and I agree with this, do we agree that Biden and Trump will both most likely be pro-Israel? Does Israel know this? Would you agree that Israel is panicking at this moment in time in terms of what's happening in Gaza? They are panicking. So why are they panicking if in November both results are pro-Israel? What is it that's making Israel spend unprecedented amounts to topple Jamal Bowman? What's making them spend unprecedented amounts to shadow ban accounts? What's making them spend unprecedented amounts to ban TikTok in the Congress? They're not worried about who comes to power in November, which means there's something else that they are concerned about. What is that thing they are concerned about? If you want. Public opinion. And we'll build on that. Now, I don't watch Tucker Carlson. I don't watch Tucker Carlson. Do not judge me when I quote him. It's just TikTok showed me a clip from one of his interviews. And the algorithm showed me because I follow Palestine. And he was talking about Palestine. He interviewed a Republican representative who said every Republican representative has an AIPAC babysitter. Did you all see that? Right. What else did he say? He said, my colleagues tell me they would love to vote with me against Israel, but they are worried about what? That AIPAC will punish them in their, what do you guys call it? We call it constituency. In their primary. That they will punish in the primary. So because they will punish me in the primary, well done, you do your thing, but I'm too scared to go against them. What Israel is concerned about is that for the first time in American history, usually in American history, if you support Zionism, you win. If you stand against Zionism, you lose. For the first time in American history, a president might lose specifically because he supported Zionism. For the first time ever, there is a possibility that a sitting US president will lose for no other reason than that he supported Zionism, even though he raised unprecedented amounts from Zionism. For the first time ever, there is a chance, a possibility, that a president will be heavily backed by Zionists, but lose because he was backed by the Zionists. Israel is worried that that aura of invincibility that it created in American politics, that it spent so much money for, is about to be broken for free by an ummah so angry about genocide that they convinced American society to punish genocide. And even if Trump comes to power and supports the Israelis, in 2 years' time, when there's a congressional election and the Zionists go to the Democrats because they play both parties, when they say to the Democrats, we will give you millions of dollars, but you have to support Zionism, the Democrats will say, listen, can you just hold up 1 second? In 2024, Biden gave you unconditional support. Biden backed you in a genocide, and you gave him all that money, but all that money, and he still lost. So with all due respect, I'll take your money, but can we negotiate the terms? I can't give unconditional support to Zionism anymore because it's no longer an asset, it's a liability. It's what made Biden lose. It's now a liability. You can't market yourself as invincible because even if you threaten me in the primary, if you couldn't rescue Biden, what makes me think you can rescue me in the primary? This is what Israel is worried about. Israel knows in November both presidents will be pro-Israel. That's not what Israel is concerned about. Israel is worried that the mathematical formula of Zionism equals victory will be emphatically broken and blown apart. Israel is worried about something else. There are two things they're worried about, and this is what I'll finish on. Some of you might think the shift in public opinion, Sami Saraha, 8-9 months you'll be saying public opinion, but the genocide is still ongoing. You're just trying to make us feel better about our own weakness. To those of you who speak in this very Dajjalic manner, I will address you very soon. But Israel is worried that the shift in public opinion in Sahih non-Muslim, in the book of Zionists, in the chapter of lobbying, the ADL leaked a recording, or a recording was leaked of the ADL. Did you all hear it? We've lost a generation, he said. We have lost a generation because of the overwhelming majority of under 35s are now pro-Palestine. On TikTok, I've seen, you will all seen it. Have you seen those young Jewish Americans coming out, lambasting Israel, supporting Palestine? I saw one girl in LA on her TikTok. She popped up because she did hashtag Palestine. She says, I just want to tell y'all, she doesn't talk like that, it's Texas, but in any case, I just want to tell you, I grew up in a Zionist environment, never having heard Zionist voices, never having heard Palestinian voices. But as a result of the content I've seen from Palestine, I'm now pro-Palestinian. I'm dedicating my account to exposing Zionism. Megan Rice had nothing to do with Palestine and Israel, but she wanted to understand, because she wasn't Dajjal, she had the other eye open. When the Muslims were saying that the Palestinians are weak, she said, I want to understand how the Palestinians are strong. I want to understand why they keep resisting, how they keep resisting, where do they get their spirit to keep going. And she says, somebody told me it was the Quran. So hear me, y'all, every day I'm going to do a 1 hour live of a page of the Quran. We're going to go through it together. 2 weeks later, what happened? She popped up with a hijab and said, La ilaha illallah Muhammadur Rasulullah. You see weakness, they saw strength. You see powerlessness, they saw power. You looked at the missiles and said that's power. They looked at the hearts and said that's power. And how could it be otherwise when this is the message of the seerah of the Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alayhi wasallam? Ibadallah, I am lucky and fortunate to have had a teacher, my beloved father, I call him my king, my leader, who taught me to look at the seerah as a political book. It was him who told me, my dad is not the one who praises quite often. I'll tell you a bit about him later on. When you read the seerah of the Prophet ﷺ, but you open the other eye, because right now, when we read it like a Dajjal, we skip over the first 13 years quite quickly. 13 years is okay, they were persecuted, Khadija anha dies, then he leaves Mecca, then the good part, Badr. Then Medina. And we take a long, even though it's only 10 years, because Mecca was 13 years, but we spend longer on the 10 years than the 13 years, without asking why did Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala leave him 13 years in Mecca and only 10 in Medina. Let's open the other eye just a little bit. Just for once, open the other eye as we go through the seerah. And I promise I won't take too long with this. When you read the seerah, actually we won't say read, because there was an American, on one of the talks I gave, a couple of youths, they came to me, and this is no insult, I'm a youth as well, alhamdulillah. They came to me and said, Sami, when I listen to you, you keep telling me read. Kazi, I tell you honestly, I don't read a book longer than 20 pages. I told him, Habibi, okay, I'll give you movie references. There is a movie called The Message by Mustafa Aqad, about the life of the Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam, and it's based on the seerah. You don't want to read? Go watch that. There's a scene where Abu Talib is lying on his deathbed, and Abu Talib says to the leaders of Quraysh, they've gone to him to say, tell your nephew to stop raising his voice, to stop tweeting, to stop talking, to stop going out and calling people to what is right and just. Abu Talib says to them, guys, all he wants from you is one word. Abu Sufyan says something remarkable. He says, if all Muhammad wanted was a word, we would have given him 100 words. The problem is the word that he wants. What did he mean, Abu Sufyan? He meant that the word of the Prophet ﷺ, even in the absence of an army to support it, even in the absence of wealth to amplify it, even in the absence of media to support it, that word was making Kamala Harris's daughter raise money for Palestine while Kamala Harris defends Zionism. That word was making Musab ibn Umair radiallahu anhu leave his life of luxury to join Muslims that he's seeing being beaten up every day. He's not joining them in Medina. He joins them when they're being beaten up. The word of the Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam is making Umar ibn al-Khattab radiallahu anhu go from beating up Muslims to joining the weak and persecuted Muslims that he was beating up, even when they don't have an army. Sami, that's motivational. He still had to leave Mecca. Okay, Barrah al-Dajjal, I'm coming to you. Bilal ibn Rabah, when you read his story like a Dajjal, there's a sense of pity about Bilal ibn Rabah's story. You pity because you see weakness, when in reality his whole story is about immense, unmovable power. What happens to Bilal? Ammar ibn Yasir is dragged before the leaders of Quraysh. And the leaders of Quraysh say, how dare you abandon our F-15s and our material superiority and our New York Times and CNN to hear the message of Muhammad and the Muslims? What is it that he teaches you that our material superiority becomes inferior in your eyes? Ammar ibn Yasir says, he teaches us that all mankind is created equal. Umayyah laughs, the leader of Quraysh. Equal is Bilal, my black slave. Equal to me? Ammar says yes. So he laughs. So he summons Bilal. And he says, Bilal, hit Ammar so he can see the power structure. So he can be reminded that the system is what's powerful. That it's Congress that makes the rules. That there is no way he can beat the system. Show him, ya Bilal. Ammar says to Bilal Rabah, Bilal, hit me. Don't speak out for Palestine. Don't denounce the genocide. They'll come after you. Citizenship laws. They'll come after organizations. They'll do an audit. They'll come after you, ya Bilal. Bilal, they will hit you. Bilal, they will do horrible things to you. Just bow your head and listen to them. Listen to a powerful system. What does Bilal do? He throws the whip away. And they go, rebellion. When they bring Bilal, they summon the other slaves to watch Bilal, not to mock Bilal. They summon the other slaves because the slaves have heard about Bilal's rebellion against the system, and they are terrified that the slaves will start asking, why did Bilal rebel? What's the power Bilal has seen that is greater than the material superiority of Quraysh? When you read the seerah like a Dajjal, you think Umayyah is powerful, hitting the weak Bilal. What you realize when you open the other eye is, Umayyah is the weak one, desperately trying to break Bilal, because Bilal's power has the potential to completely ruin the society of Quraysh. Umayyah is hitting Bilal, begging him to give in, begging him to stop, because if Bilal doesn't stop, Umayyah knows Quraysh is doomed. There are other examples. This is just motivational. Some of you might say, Sami, this is all personal stuff. Khalas Habibi. First 13 years, no army, no wealth, no media. Foreign policy. The Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alayhi wasallam, he sends the Muslims to Abyssinia, to Najashi. He sends the ones struggling with the persecution. He sends them to Paris to Najashi. He sends them to Miami. And says to them, go, you have freedoms there that don't exist in the Muslim world, in which many of the leaders are closer to Zionism. Go to America where you have freedom of speech. There you will be able to give the da'wah freely. They go to Najashi. Najashi is the NATO ally of Quraysh. He's the NATO ally. He's the diplomatic economic partner of Quraysh. Amr ibn As, when he goes to Najashi, Najashi says, why didn't you tell me there's a rebellion? Let me help you. You want them to be kicked out of here? I'll kick them out and I'll send them back. Ja'far says, our Prophet told us that you're a fair king and you'll at least listen to us. At least watch the TikTok video. At least hear Mu'taz Aziz's tweets. At least read what's happening before you make a decision. Najashi says, they've laid upon me an obligation to listen to them. In this environment of freedom of speech, tell me about the Palestinian cause and this genocide that's unfolding. Ja'far ibn Abi Talib stands up. It's an epic scene. It's in English, but I think there's American subtitles. You can find them. We worship gods of wood and stone, elements of our own manufacture. The rich neglect the poor, and the act by which a brother lifts his fellow brother up is described by them as upsetting social order. To this, a prophet has come. And why should we be surprised that God speaks to us through Muhammad? Did he not speak to us through Moses and Jesus? Who taught you those names? Who taught you those names? Why? They are in the Quran. What does your Prophet teach you? And he continues the speech until Najashi says to Amr ibn As, why are your 300 gods tongue-tied while his one God is eloquent? Why are New York Times, CNN suddenly become so uninfluential while these TikTok accounts are eloquent? Najashi, the NATO ally of Quraysh, the economic ally, Ja'far is not proposing a military agreement. He has no army to substitute. He has no economy to substitute. But Najashi still tells Amr ibn As, not for a mountain of gold will I hand them over to you. They stay here. Macron says ceasefire. Belgium says sanctions. Spain says I'm recognizing a Palestinian state. Ireland says I'm recognizing a Palestinian state. Norway says I'm recognizing a Palestinian state. And Biden goes back to Amr ibn As goes back to Quraysh and says they're affecting our foreign policy. Our allies are turning against us. We have the F-15s and F-16s and the missiles. What is the power that this ummah has that the material superiority cannot crush? Jazakumullah al khair for having me.